And those should be widely ranging in cost. And I found when we started to adopt that kind of three options model that my fear of overpricing a client and losing them went out the window, because there's always going to be two versions that were in their budget. So if the client said, I have 150 grand to build this thing, I would say, okay, cool. We'd give them, $150,000 quote. Here's what you get. We would give them maybe $125,000 quote. Here's what you get. But then we would give them the $400,000 quote and say, here's what this is going to do. All the things you haven't thought of, all the problems that you haven't really dug into. We would give them this on a one pager, and we would walk them through it on the phone. And it's surprising, A, how it removed the fear of us swinging for the fence. B, how our close rates went up and our average sale value went up. So like that whole option of having three options in the proposal to any client right out of the gate, something I wish I would have done earlier too.
Do you present the highest option first, or do you present it last?
First. The way that I was taught was you come in with a high option and you say, option one, it has a name, whatever it is, like valued partnership is $500,000. And you just go right to the number, and it's like a bomb goes off, and you let it sit there for a minute. And then you say, here's what you get. Here's what you don't get. Here's the reason you picked this one. And then you go to the next one. And what that does is anchor the client super high. That way, the middle option seems a lot more reasonable. Also, when you go to the next option, the middle option, you're removing stuff. And that's now you're playing into loss aversion, right? You're not upselling them. They're not getting things. And the tendency for us as people, the psychological side of it, is to be like, oh, but I want that thing. I was going to have it. Now it's getting removed. You know what I mean? So it's a bit of price bracketing and price anchoring, and also a little bit playing into loss aversion.
So based on that pricing strategy, you're playing to get the middle.
I'm kind of playing to get both, but yeah, like you're aiming for the middle-ish. Most people pick the middle, right? Because the big one's big and usually way above their stated budget. And also, I would position the cheap one as the cheap one. And people don't want to be cheap, right? And they're looking at these options. They're like, I don't want to be the cheap guy. This middle one seems all right. And this is like, you've seen it on a million SaaS pricing pages, right? It's this exact same psychological effect.
On SaaS pricing, normally that scary one is usually enterprise. Please contact us for pricing.
Yeah, totally.
So you don't actually get exposed to it.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? Like, and I think that's probably just because it's really difficult. It's difficult to have a SaaS pricing page that any web visitor in the world can see and have a price that would work. They want to actually get the enterprise client on the call to figure out the scope so they can price it properly. Whereas like if you're a consultant, you've already had this style of conversation. So you can go away and come back with a customized kind of three option sheet.
What else have we not mentioned that you think is really valuable to mention about something you've learned?
I think probably the last one would be planning for growth. We were very reactive. We get too busy and then I go, oh shit, I need a backend developer. We get too busy and now I need a project manager. And it was totally reactive hiring. And then eventually we sort of figured out what the company looked like. And the analogy that's kind of in my brain is like, when you start building a deck or something like that, you don't just start hammering boards together. Right? You at least like sketch it out on a napkin. You have a general idea of what you're going to do. And then you go start building it to plan. But agencies often just start hammering boards together when they're building their company. And so what we did that worked really well for us is we would like literally map out our version one, the kind of scrappy startup sort of thing. And then we map out our version 1.5 and our version 2, our version 2.5, our version 3, and scaling up, but not only the roles and accountabilities for the firm, but also the financial side of it. So how many people in this development role, what's their billable time target, what's their true salary, all that kind of stuff. What's our real shop rate? So you can figure out what the revenue and profitability potential of the company in each of those versions would kind of be. And then you can start to actually like work towards a vision of the company that is 5 million instead of 2, and it's you're following a plan as opposed to just randomly doing it.
When Mark and I were doing our last tech company together, he was my COO and he did all of that stuff. He was like, oh, we need an org chart, we need this and that, and I was like, all right, go for it, because he understood how to tie financials to the planning, because the investors, for people that want to raise money from investors, even when you're really early, the investor's like, okay, how much are you raising and where is it going? And you have to be able to show this like 5-year plan for like, I'm going to hire this person, then this person, then this person, then this person. It's like this month we're going to have 20 people. Next month we're going to have 22 people. Next we're going to have 25 people. What are their salaries? How does this impact the organization? How does the chart evolve? And because, you know, when you're looking at raising millions of dollars where you're going to be hiring dozens or hundreds of more people with that money. So, you know, the vast majority of the money you're hiring is going towards being able to create more value for the company. In that early stage, it's not about revenue and how does revenue allow growth, but rather we're borrowing this money in order to create this growth that, you know, isn't going to create revenues so fast. So it's a very different
Yeah, 100%.
mindset. But yeah, if you ask me to do all of that at the scale that he was doing it, I can't do that. But it was something that he did.
Yeah, for sure. But it's helpful to make sure you're kind of the ship is pointed in the right direction. You know what I mean? I don't think you need to do it necessarily like immediately out of the gate, but at a certain point you do.
Right. So on the VC side, you have to do it. So, you know, in the case that we only raised $1 million, in the case that we raised 3 million, in the case that we raised 5 million, right? So you have to do multiple cases over multiple years. You have to create multiple models along with P&L models. You have to create P&L models based on, you have to create P&L and org chart models based on that 1, that 3, that 5, right? Thanks for watching. If you liked this insight, I've handpicked another video for you right here on the screen. For more actionable strategies that get you real results, hit subscribe.